Okay. You've heard of atheism. Okay.
Yes.
Now that word atheism comes from two Latin words. Theos means God. We are theistic people. And theology means the study of God. Theos and logos, the word, you're studying about God. Atheism, a means the negative. So atheistic means you are against God or against belief in God. And atheists say there is no God. Okay.
I was just going to ask if you saw the movie God's Not Dead.
Yes, I talked about that.
Oh, was that him? I have 2 classes, that's what I was wondering. Can we watch it in class?
No. You can go out and rent it. I recommend it. Yeah, it's a good movie. So anyway, a rejection of the existence of God, that's what atheism is properly speaking. Okay? And this is from our Catechism of the Catholic Church right here, okay, 2123. Many of our contemporaries either do not all perceive or explicitly reject the intimate vital bond of man to God. Atheism must therefore be regarded as one of the most serious problems of our time. You have people like Richard Dawkins, the scientist, who knows science but can't think in philosophic or theological terms. His arguments are very poor, and if you really study him, they're easy to pick apart. But he's an atheist, and he just uses arguments ad hominem. Homo is man, okay, in the Greek. Hominum, ad hominem, attacking the person, that's what it is. And he says things like, well, people who believe in God are delusional. In fact, that's the title of his book, The God Delusion, which he doesn't make a good case for his atheism. He just uses a number of arguments, but you can really poke through them pretty easily. But a lot of people follow his thought and aren't deep thinkers. So the term atheism covers many different phenomena, though. Okay, that's 2124. This is the Catechism. The name atheism covers many different phenomena. One common form is practical materialism. A materialist believes there's only matter, there's nothing spiritual, no soul, no God, no angels. And okay, the only thing we're worried about is the here and now, satisfying our practical material needs. Okay, that's a practical materialist, and you could say they're practical atheists too. Okay? Atheistic humanism falsely considers man to be an end to himself, the soul maker, the supreme in supreme control of his own history. I make myself, I don't rely on anyone, I don't rely on God. Another form of contemporary atheism looks for liberation of man through economic and social liberation. It holds religion, of its very nature, thwarts, inhibits the emancipation of raising man's hopes in a future life, thus deceiving him, discouraging him from working for a better life on earth. You know who held to this idea? That religion is, he called it the opiate of the people. Okay, this is just to satisfy the people, to keep them poor and satisfied so they don't strive for better things. There's really no God, and people could be better off economically if they would just reject God and work for building up the state. Anyone know who this was who put forth this who?
Karl Marx.
Karl Marx, yeah, Karl Marx. This is classic Marxism. Okay, Marx was a materialist. Okay, and anyway, these terms here, practical materialism, okay, it restricts needs and aspirations to space and time. Atheistic humanism falsely considers man end in himself, okay, the soul maker with supreme control of his history. We make our own lives, and that's it. At the end of our lives, there's nothing else that is real. Okay. Another contemporary atheism looks for the liberation of man through economic, social liberation. This was atheistic communism. If the workers overthrow the owners of the capital and share everything, we'll be in an earthly paradise. Well, it didn't work that way, if you know the history of Russia and China, where atheistic communism was very strong. North Korea now, you ever read about North Korea? You wouldn't want to live in North Korea. Purely atheistic state and much social control over people's individual lives. Anyway, near the bottom there are two kinds of atheists. Theoretical, okay, and Richard Dawkins would be a theoretical atheist. Okay, I'm doing this on philosophical terms. Okay, I'm just, has no thought about the God question and says there is no God. The practically atheist has not thought about the God question really, okay, but they live as though there were no God. So someone can be, not giving it much thought, but they go on with life as if God doesn't exist. And I think I mentioned to you the recent survey done by out of Georgetown University, CARA, the Center for Applied Research. They said between 18 and 30, or 18 and 35, about 35–40% of these people in this age group have no religious affiliation. And maybe they're just in this category of practical atheists, living as if there is no God. Okay? Can either of these two be saved? Well, this is kind of an opinion. Maybe a glimmer of hope for the theoretical atheist, because if you can convince them, they're thinking, okay, you can show them it's reasonable to believe in God. Maybe you can convert them, so to speak. Maybe very little hope for the practical atheist who is not interested in truth, only himself. Okay? I'm just living for today. Okay? Sex, drugs, rock and roll, that's all I care about, and life goes on, and I don't care about anything else. Well, that may be a harder person to convert. But I think with the people that are just unchurched out there, I don't know how you categorize them. They'd be theoretical and practical atheists, but they're actually worthy of conversion. That's what we have to do, go out and convert these people. Okay? Materialism. It's a form of theoretical atheism. Only matter exists. That's what a materialist says. If you're a strict materialist, deny spiritual realities. There's no God, there's no angels, because angels are purely spiritual beings. There's no matter in an angel. They have intellect and free will, but there's no matter to them. The human soul. Okay? The atheists and the materialists, the doctors especially in the Enlightenment age, would cut open people and say, we see no soul inside. There's no soul. Okay? Well, that's because it's spiritual. You cannot see it. Okay? And for the materialist, human consciousness is a function of matter, brain cells working together. That's all it is. And someone like a strict Darwinist who's a materialist, they're saying that we just evolved with our human consciousness, our intellect and free will. But you look at all the lower animals, and this tends to deny this. I mean, how can someone who is not able to reflect and think as we can, how can they start doing this? The materialists would say, well, it's just a matter of evolution. In another 10,000 years, alligators will be sitting around the coffee table discussing politics. Really, that's what you're saying, because they're going to evolve. Their brains will get more and more sharp or whatever. I don't think that makes much sense. There's no real proof for that. So Karl Marx was a materialist philosopher. That's how he started out. He was a philosopher. Then he wrote books on politics and to overthrow the capitalists. He had a legitimate gripe. I mean, the workers were being treated badly, but you don't reject God and just say we'll take over the ownership of the capital and everyone will be happy. It didn't work out. It was a big failure. So people see that. Even communist China now. I had our two Chinese guys. Are they here this year? Are they still here? The two?
Eddie and Ling.
Are they here?
No, they graduated.
They graduated.
Okay. Because,
why?
Because well, they admitted, in class last year that, China is opting for capitalism. That's what Marx opposed, you see. because communism doesn't work. Everyone remains poor, and you get ahead with a free market system, okay, where you have innovation and manufacturing, things like this. So capitalism is operating under the communist system. I mean, it's still atheistic, but the government, at least, okay. A lot of the Chinese practice, a faith, they believe in something, but strictly speaking, you can't make it up in the Communist Party unless you adhere to atheism. And agnosticism is another term we should be familiar with here. The Greek word for knowledge is gnosis. So, agnosis, agnostic, as we say, okay, means against knowing. What does the agnostic say? The agnostic doesn't really deny God outright. The agnostic says, well, I just don't know. I'm not sure. There's not enough proof for me. Okay? Doubt and uncertainty that God exists because he can't establish God's existence. Well, since God's existence can't be proved, I can't be sure there is a God. Now, we can reason to the existence of a God, but you still have to make an act of faith that there is a God. Because we have no empirical proof for God. Okay? Even Jesus worked miracles before people's eyes. Right in front of them. He raised people from the dead, made the blind see. People still refuse to believe that he was who he said he was. That he was God made man. So in the end, it does come down to faith, but it's not unreasonable to believe in God. And the agnostic just maybe needs a little push, a little shove, and be open to God's grace. Okay? Now, there's forms of agnosticism. One says it's impossible to know whether there's a God. Well, that's a little more hardline. Another says there is a God, but we cannot know anything about him because he's incapable of revealing himself. This is like the deists. Okay? Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, they were deists. There's a God, but we really can't know anything about him. Okay? Jefferson and Franklin didn't believe Jesus Christ was God. They were not really Christians. Even George Washington, I've read statements by him. He really didn't believe that Jesus was God. He was a good man. So they were agnostic in that sense. Now the Catechism, CCC, agnosticism assumes a number of forms, certain cases refrains from denying God, postulates the existence of a transcendent being incapable of revealing itself, about which nothing can be said. That's the deist. That's like Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin. Okay? In other cases, the agnostic makes no judgment about God's existence. It's impossible to prove, to affirm or deny. So I'll just sit on the fence. Okay? Well, in the book of Revelation, Jesus says something about these people. He says, I would like you to be either hot or cold. If you're lukewarm, I'll spew you out of my mouth. So don't be a fence sitter. I have more respect for someone who just says, I'm an atheist, I don't believe. And, well, I just don't know, and I'll just, whatever. Make up your mind. Okay? Go one way or the other. Don't just sit on the fence and say, I don't know. That's what an agnostic does. Okay? Agnosticism 21:28 can sometimes include a search for God, agnosticism, but it can equally express indifferentism. It doesn't really matter. My life goes on, and okay, I don't really care if there's a God. I have a feeling, maybe many of this group that has no religious affiliation, they may be like this, just kind of indifferent to whether there's a God or not. I'm just concerned about, having a good time, making enough money to live on, and that's all I care about. Okay. Well, a sluggish moral conscience, often equivalent to practical atheism. Okay. You can see it with that definition. Okay. Now, rationalism. Now, we talked about rationalism already. Exalts reason, downplays the faith. Holds human reason itself is self-sufficient. Okay. By reason alone, we can know all that we need to know about how to lead a good life. It rejects anything reason cannot comprehend. I can't understand how bread and wine can become the body and blood of Christ in the Mass, so I don't believe in the real presence of Jesus in the Eucharist. So a rationalist would deny the Trinity, because we cannot grasp how there could be three persons in one God. A strict rationalist would deny that Jesus is God. How can God become man while becoming God? No. See, I think Satan was the first rationalist, because when God revealed to the angels that they would have to worship God who would become man, Satan rebelled. And I think it was because of this. Because he said, no, God becoming man, how can this be? How can this happen? Well, God did it. He made it happen. Okay? Now, there's probably another term here. Have any of you heard the term Fideism? Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
That's on the bottom of that second page. Fideism. Okay? What Fideism does, it's kind of the opposite of rationalism. It exalts faith. Okay? Faith is everything, but excludes reason in matters of religion. It holds that the only certain knowledge we have is what is known by faith, denies any certain truth can be known by reason. We cannot prove.
I have to go to this like college thing because it's at 45.
Do you have a pass for that?
On my computer, but I'll just show you just so you know.
Okay. A college thing.
Yeah.
What college thing is it?
The college rock that comes into the guidance room.
For what college?
Oh shit.
Florida Southwestern. Florida. Maybe. We'll see. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And that's they're
You
here
might get
now, huh?
You might have an email about it because you teachers.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Okay. Well,
Did it
you
say?
can watch the rest of the class on YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
And then just look under
Campbell, Apologetics. You'll see the last one. Yeah. I'll post it today. Okay.
and then I'll review this.
Yes, yes. Really cool. Read it over. Okay. So, Fideism says that we can only have certain knowledge from what is known by faith. Denies any certain truth can be known by reason. For example, we cannot prove that God exists through use of our reason. We deny that. No. We know God exists because God has revealed to us. Well, no. We believe that we can come to a knowledge that God exists by the use of our reason. The ancient Greek philosophers did. And we're going to see some arguments for that. Have you ever seen the 5 arguments based upon reason for the proof of God? The 5 proofs. Of Aristotle actually put them forth, and then Thomas Aquinas did, St. Thomas Aquinas. We're going to review that. It's a reasonable defense that God exists. Okay? So the Fideists would say, no, we can't use our reason to know God exists. Well, yes, we can. God gave us a reason. Faith and reason go together. And some things reason can't attain, like there are 3 persons in one God. You can't reason to that. God had to reveal that. Now, the last thing on the page is something called dualism. And that characterizes our present age a lot. Okay? It separates faith and reason. It says they're opposed to each other. Faith is a personal, subjective belief. There's no objective truth. Okay? It's what everyone believes. You can believe that that the fairies really exist. The tooth fairy exists if you want. And that's your religion. The religion of the tooth fairy if you want. And reason is only scientific, mathematical, imperial reasoning. That's it. Okay? So if you look at faith from that perspective and reason from that perspective, well then you're going to say faith and reason are opposed. But if you say, no, faith is there is objective truth, and we can use our reason to obtain objective truth, and know many of the truths about God, faith and reason aren't opposed. Okay? Now, look at the next page. There are some nice little diagrams here. Okay? On the top, okay, some things are known only by reason. Some things are known by reason and revelation. Some things are known only by revelation. I'll start with the last. Some things are known only by revelation. For example, that there are three persons in one God. That the Son of God became man. We can't reason to that. God revealed it to us. Now, some things can be known by reason and by revelation, that God exists. God revealed this to us, but we can reason to the fact that God exists. Some things can be known only by reason. Well, I'm trying to think of an example of that. Nothing comes to the top of my head right away. That's a position some people may hold, especially a rationalist. But I'll go to the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 here, okay? 5 possible answers to the question of the relation between any two classes or sets of things, okay? All A's are B's, but not all B's are A's. That's rationalism. All that is known by faith is also known by reason, okay? But not all that is known by reason is known by faith. In other words, faith is a subclass of reason. No Christian thinker has ever held this position. A philosopher named Hegel held it. It's quite popular today. Okay, they're exalting reason over faith. Now, by faith we can know some things, but by reason we can know more. That's the rationalist. Okay? By reason we can come to much more knowledge about things that faith can only approach. Okay, so number 2, all B's are A's, but not all A's are B's. That's Fideism. The only knowledge that is certain is what is known by faith. It denies any certain truth attainable without faith. Well, no, we can come to know with certainty that God exists. That's actually a dogma of our faith. The Pope defined this. Vatican I said, we can use our reason to come to a knowledge of God. So, we reject rationalism, we reject fideism. Okay? Now, the third possibility, all A's are B's, all B's are A's. Identity of faith and reason. No one really holds this position. Okay? There's no real identity of it. Okay? Number 4, dualism. It characterizes our modern era. It reflects that the separation of church and state, the sacred and the secular, divorces the two. It reduces reason to scientific, mathematical, empirical reasoning. Okay, that's only, we don't reason to things like God. It's only science and weighing things and measuring things. Okay, it reduces faith to a personal, subjective attitude. Okay, and that's really what the new healthcare law does, because they're saying, well, you can practice your faith in your churches, but when it comes to buying insurance from the government, okay, well, you're going to have to go along with our program and buy our drugs that even kill babies. We don't care what you say, because this is the state talking, and your personal beliefs are separate. Well, no, that's not what we're about as a country. That's not what religious liberty is about. Okay, and the freedom of religion. It protects our beliefs. So this is a problem today. One thing I'd like to point out is actually, I didn't learn this as an attorney. I learned it afterwards. There's an official set of laws in this country that they're called the laws of the United States. Volume 1 of the laws of the United States contains in it the Declaration of Independence. And the Declaration of Independence recognizes that there is a God. Because it says we hold these truths to be self-evident, all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with unalienable rights of life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. That is a law, that's the first law of our country. It was placed in the official set of laws of this country. Many lawyers don't even know this. I never learned this going through law school until later. I never looked in the very first volume of the U.S. laws. So our founders were really acknowledging the existence of God. Okay? However, not the Christian God, the Creator. Okay? Didn't recognize Jesus as the King, which he is. That's a problem with our country at its founding, but that's another issue. Okay. Now, finally, number 5. This is the most reasonable position, and most people agree with it. Some but not all A's are B's, and some but not all B's are A's. Okay. Partial overlapping. Okay. Go to the next page. We distinguish 3 kinds of truths. Truths of faith and not reason. That is, for example, 3 persons in one God, the Trinity. That's a truth of faith. It's not a truth that you can attain by reason. Truths of both faith and reason. God exists. We can use our reason to know God exists. We can know with certainty that there is a God who exists. And it's reasonable to even come to a conclusion that God maintains things in existence and orders creation. That's what the ancient Greek philosophers did. Truths of reason, but not by faith. Okay? I was trying to think of an example here. Here's one. Okay? The whole is greater than the part. Okay? Now, we don't believe that on faith, but that's a truth of reason. That's kind of self-evident, right? The whole is greater than the part, right? Okay? If you have part of something, and you have a whole of something, that whole is greater than the part. Well, that's obvious by reason. That's not really something by faith. We don't put faith in that. Okay? Here's another one. 2 plus 2 is 4. Okay. Do we put faith in that? No, that's reason. 2 plus 2 is 4. We can see that by reason. 2 plus 2 is 4. Okay? You don't have to have faith in that. Okay? This is just something that we reason to. Unless someone wants to have faith in that, but you don't really have faith in 2 plus 2 is 4, or the whole is greater than the part, or the principle of non-contradiction, that a thing cannot be and not be at the same time under the same circumstances. Okay? That's an obvious truth of reason that you can't even prove. I mean, you have to just take it for what it is, because if you can't see this, then you're not in touch with reality. Someone is delusional if they think that a thing can be and not be at the same time. So, 2 questions concerning the relationship faith to reason. How much of faith can reason prove? Can faith and reason ever contradict each other? The first question, there are different answers. Okay? Faith, how much of the faith can reason prove? Some, but not all. Okay? We believe there's a God. Reason can prove that. We believe there's 3 persons in one God. Reason can't prove that. That is something you have to believe on faith. The Son of God became man while remaining God. Jesus, when he walked on earth, was God. You can't prove that by reason. You can't. He rose from the dead. You can't prove that by reason. There are people who saw him. Okay? Now, there are modern theologians who say, well, they were just imagining they saw Jesus. Jesus really didn't rise from the dead. Well, it comes down to faith. Reason can't prove that. Okay? So, the second question, can faith and reason ever contradict each other? Only falsehood can contradict truth. Either Christianity is false, or reason is false. Or if both are true, there can never be any real contradiction between them. Truth can't contradict truth. If we're talking things of faith, objective truth, the things that we attain by reason can't contradict that. So we don't say there's a contradiction between faith and reason. We're speaking objectively, not subjectively. Someone can believe in many gods or the tooth fairy religion or whatever, but objectively, faith and reason are not opposed. Okay, we can misunderstand the faith, but we can misuse our reason. People don't understand the faith sometimes. We have to study it more. We can misuse our reason. Okay? People can go off and go on wrong principles, and then if you go on a wrong principle, you end up out in the ozone somewhere. I think Mr. Dawkins, Professor Dawkins, has misused his reason. He made a recent statement. I don't know if anyone saw it. It gained quite a. There's a lot of talk on the internet about it. He said that Down syndrome children, you have a duty to kill them in the womb if you know that they're Down syndrome children, because they're not really intelligent human beings. They're just, detect them in the womb, get rid of them. You have actually an obligation to do this. One of the people that answered him was the former governor of Alaska, Sarah Palin. She's got a Down syndrome baby. Sarah Palin says, wait a minute. All Down syndrome children can do is love. They can't hate. Anyone know any Down syndrome people?
Yeah. There was a little girl in my church, and she was the cutest little girl ever. She was with Claire.
Yeah. And the new head of the KUSD, Kenosha.
Unified School District, yes.
That's okay. Yeah, that's Dr. What's her name? She's the superintendent. That's her daughter. Adopted daughter. I don't think that's her natural daughter. Anyway, opinions can contradict faith, but reason itself cannot. Okay? We're really using reason. We cannot contradict faith. The objective truths, God is the author of both. That's why. He made the natural order. Nothing that science can come up with can contradict what God is about and what he has revealed to us if we really study things. Okay? Justin Martyr, he's a saint. Okay? He wrote in the 2nd century his autobiographical first apology. He was making arguments against the Roman emperors. A man seeks the truth by unaided effort of reason and is disappointed. If you're trying to seek the fullness of the truth just by reason alone, you might be disappointed. It is offered him by faith. He accepts. Having accepted it, he finds that it satisfies his reason. If someone's really searching for the truth, you have great minds that find Christianity as something they can accept. Okay? And last page, go to the last page. Why, or what of all those intellectually brilliant unbelievers, the counterexamples to Justin Martyr, if Christianity is so unreasonable, why did Celsus, okay, that's where we get Celsius from, Plotinus, Hobbes, Machiavelli, Voltaire, Rousseau, Melville, Jefferson, Shaw, Benjamin Franklin, Sartre, Nietzsche, Marx, Freud, Skinner, all rejected? Well, Christianity is reasonable, but it's not obvious. It's more like E equals MC2 than 2 plus 2 equal 4. If it was like 2 plus 2 equal 4, everyone would accept it. It takes a little more than that. Okay? B, if Christianity is so irrational, why have so many brilliant minds accepted it? St. Paul, St. John, Augustine, Aquinas, Calvin, okay, Pascal, Berkeley, Galileo, Copernicus, Kepler, Newton, Lincoln, Pasteur, Shakespeare, Dante, Chesterton. It goes through a whole list of people here. Okay. Tolkien. Anyone know who Tolkien is?
J.R.R.
Okay. Lord of the Rings, Tolkien. Okay. Da Vinci, Michelangelo, T.S. Eliot, Bach, great composer. Okay. Reply C. Brilliant minds often reject Christianity because they don't want it to be true. It's no longer fashionable, or it commands obedience, repentance, and humility. Okay? I have people that tell me, I'd like to, go become a Catholic, but that would mean I'd have to get up on Sunday morning and go to church. And I like to sleep in. What a sad reason for not accepting the faith. Okay? Or they may have some other reason. Okay? For the test on Thursday, which we'll have a test on Thursday. Okay? And I got here. Mrs. Pitpain will administer the test. Okay? Like I said, that article on the by Father Dubay, okay, be able to give 3 arguments why people commit error.
For the human nature.
I mean, we just dealt with it here. I mean, with some people, it's not fashionable, or it would crimp my lifestyle, or pride. I'm holding to my position. I refuse to just research the topic and come to a reasonable conclusion. So. Okay.